He signed everything. How is it not valid? Signing is easy. Knowing what you're signing, that's the real game. It started on a completely ordinary Tuesday morning, around 9:47 a.m. I was standing in our hallway holding my coffee mug when I heard my wife Rachel talking on speakerphone. She wasn't even trying to be quiet. The woman was having a full volume conversation with her mother, Beverly, about how she was planning to leave me. "Mom, I'm telling you, I'm done with him," Rachel said, casual as anything. "I can't live with a man who thinks sleeping with my boss is such a big deal. Like, seriously, it's 2025, not the Victorian era." I just stood there frozen with my coffee halfway to my mouth. My brain kept trying to process what I was hearing, but it was like hitting an error message over and over. Sleeping with her boss, her rich boss, Heath. When exactly did adultery become a lifestyle choice? Beverly, Rachel's mom, was cackling on the other end. This woman had been divorced 3 times, each husband wealthier than the last, and she wore her alimony payments like medals. Oh, darling, finally. I've been saying for years you could do better. Someone who understands your ambitions and lifestyle. That poor man still drives a work truck, for heaven's sake. My work truck is a 2020 Ford F-250, fully loaded, custom electrical equipment bay. Gets the job done, and has never once judged me for eating gas station burritos at 6 a.m., which is more than I could say for the people currently trashing it. "I know, right?" Rachel laughed. "And he's so predictable. Sets up his tools the same way every morning. The same way, Mom. Who does that? People who aren't sociopaths," I wanted to yell. People who enjoy consistency and not having their spouse cheat on them. But I didn't say anything. I just stood there gripping my mug and listening to my marriage get canceled like a bad TV show. "So, what's your plan, sweetheart?" Beverly asked, and I could practically hear her lighting a cigarette. "Already talking to a lawyer," Rachel said proudly. "Stephen Carter. You know that divorce attorney who handled the Richardson case? He's supposed to be ruthless. Doesn't lose." Great. She was hiring the shark of divorce lawyers. "And Wade?" Beverly used my name like it was mildly annoying. "How's he taking it?" Rachel sighed dramatically. "Oh, he'll agree to everything. He's too soft. Honestly, Mom, the man apologizes to his tools when he drops them. He won't fight me on this." The worst part? She was absolutely right about that. I'd been raised to be respectful, to avoid confrontation, to work hard and keep my head down. Navy taught me discipline, not aggression. My father always said real men handle problems quietly, professionally. Looking back, maybe that philosophy had been too convenient for the women who walked all over me. I walked back to the kitchen, set my mug down carefully, and stared at our wall calendar that still had our anniversary circled in. A red marker. September 14th, with a heart drawn around it in Rachel's handwriting, back when she pretended to care about things like that. The conversation continued in the other room. Rachel was explaining her exit strategy like she was briefing a corporate acquisition. She'd already researched Texas divorce law, identified our assets, calculated her expected payout. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was a methodical execution of a plan she'd been developing while I was busy being a devoted husband. "The house alone should net me at least $200,000, she was saying, plus his retirement accounts, savings, and I'll push for alimony since I've been supporting his career by managing our social life." Supporting my career? The woman who rolled her eyes every time I mentioned a job site, who complained about my work schedule, who'd made it clear my profession embarrassed her at dinner parties. Apparently, embarrassment qualified as career support in Rachel's universe. Beverly was eating this up. "You're being smart, honey. Don't let guilt make you settle for less than you deserve. Men always try to make us feel bad for looking out for ourselves." Looking out for herself. That's what she called sleeping with her boss for 6 months, while planning to rob me blind in divorce court. The rationalization was almost impressive. When Rachel finally came to talk to me 20 minutes later, she looked like she was about to film a commercial. Perfect makeup, styled hair, practiced expression of concern. She'd changed from her casual morning clothes into what I recognized as her serious business outfit. The woman had actually dressed up to dump me. "Wade, we need to talk." I turned around slowly, coffee mug back in my hand, because apparently it had become my emotional support item. "Sure, what's up?" Over the next hour, she laid it all out with the efficiency of a corporate presentation. The affair had been going on for 6 months. His name was Heath Morrison. He was her boss at Mercedes-Benz North Dallas, drove a new AMG GT, owned a downtown loft, and apparently understood her need for growth and excitement. She wanted a divorce, clean and simple. She'd already talked to Stephen Carter and had papers drawn up. Everything was organized, professional, considerate. She'd even printed out a timeline of next steps. "I think we can handle this maturely," she said, sliding a folder across our kitchen island. "No fighting, no drama, just two adults moving forward." I looked at the papers, looked back at her, and smiled. "Okay." She blinked hard. "Okay?" "Yeah," I said, reaching for a pen. "Sure, let's do it." I watched confusion flicker across her face, then relief, then something that almost looked like disappointment. Maybe she wanted to fight to justify whatever story she'd built in her head. Maybe she needed me to be angry so she could feel better about what she'd done. But I just signed where she pointed and handed the folder back with the same pleasant expression I use when declining extended warranties. "That's it?" she asked, holding the folder like it might bite her. "That's it," I confirmed, taking another sip of lukewarm coffee. She stood there for another moment, clearly expecting more of a reaction. Drama, tears, begging maybe. But when I went back to scrolling my phone, she huffed and walked away, heels clicking on our hardwood floors like an angry metronome. Here's what Rachel didn't know and had never bothered to ask about. I'm not just Wade Collins, licensed master electrician, making $85K a year doing residential service calls. That's my cover story, my Clark Kent identity. My real job is as founder and CEO of Collins Electric Solutions, LLC, a specialized electrical contracting firm handling government facilities, oil refineries, and data centers across Texas. I started the company 8 years ago, a full year before I even met Rachel at that charity mixer downtown. The company is registered under the LLC to keep it separate from my personal life. All the paperwork, all the assets, all the considerable income is tied to the business entity, not to me personally. I'd structured it this way with my attorney, Jennifer Walsh, for liability protection and tax purposes. She'd told me back in 2017 that keeping business separate from personal life was the smartest financial decision I'd ever make. She meant it from a tax perspective. Neither of us predicted it would also become the ultimate divorce defense. The Navy had taught me to think systematically, to plan for contingencies, to keep mission-critical information compartmentalized. When I started Collins Electric, I applied those same principles. Personal Wade drove a work truck and fixed residential wiring. Business Wade held Department of Defense security clearances and maintained electrical systems for military installations. Here's where it gets really beautiful. Collins Electric handles maintenance contracts for Auto Plaza Group, the massive dealership network that owns about 12 luxury car lots across North Texas. One of those dealerships is Mercedes-Benz North Dallas, where Rachel worked and where Heath Morrison served as general manager, which meant Heath was essentially my client. He was signing off on invoices that paid me. He was approving service contracts. The man sleeping with my wife was unknowingly funding my bank account to the tune of about $220K annually. Every month, Heath's signature authorized payment for electrical maintenance, security system updates, lighting retrofits, and emergency repairs across the Auto Plaza network. The irony was so perfect, it felt like the universe had a sense of humor. While Rachel was busy planning her exciting new life, I became a method actor in the role of devoted husband. I smiled at breakfast. I packed her lunches with little notes. I asked about her day. I helped her pick outfits. And secretly, I started documenting everything. I'm a systems guy. Always have been. Navy taught me that information is power, but organized information is overwhelming force. So, when my wife started cheating, my brain went straight to data collection. I created a spreadsheet called Project Truth and started tracking her schedule, noting when she said she'd be home versus actual arrival times. I tracked mileage on her car. On late work nights, she was averaging an extra 47 miles. Weird, considering her dealership was only 14 miles from home. The extra mileage led me to credit card statements. We had separate accounts, but one joint card for shared expenses. Buried in the March statement between utilities and Target was a charge that made my analyst brain light up. 4 Seasons downtown. Client entertainment, 380 hours. Client entertainment at a 5-star hotel. How professional. I pulled up full statement history and found 6 more charges just like it over 3 months, each labeled with business terminology: corporate dinner meetings at luxury hotels, client development lunches at expensive restaurants, professional networking events at wine bars. Rachel had turned adultery into a business expense category. I cross-referenced her late meetings with Heath's LinkedIn posts about leadership and innovation. The man loved sharing inspirational quotes about success and teamwork, usually posting them around 9:15 p.m., while Rachel's GPS showed her at the same downtown locations. My spreadsheet evolved into a masterpiece with multiple tabs: timeline, locations, expenses, frequency analysis, correlation patterns. I color-coded by evidence type: green for suspicious schedule changes, yellow for unusual expenses, red for confirmed hotel visits. That spreadsheet looked like a rainbow, which was either beautiful or disturbing, depending on your perspective. I calculated her average betrayal frequency: 2.7 times weekly, created bar graphs showing peak days, Thursdays and Tuesdays, even developed a predictive model based on historical patterns. I was like a meteorologist, except instead of predicting weather, I was predicting adultery. The most damning evidence came from security footage. Not surveillance, I'm not a stalker, but legitimate business security. Collins Electric maintained the electrical systems for several buildings downtown, including the Four Seasons parking garage. As part of our maintenance contract, we had access to security feeds for troubleshooting electrical issues. Purely by coincidence, while diagnosing a lighting problem, I happened to notice Rachel's white Audi entering the garage at 2:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, when she'd told me she was showing cars all afternoon. The timestamp matched a client lunch charge on our credit card. My friend Tony Reeves called one evening while I was updating correlation coefficients. Tony works at Chevron and was one of 4 people who knew about my company. We'd served together in the Navy, both CBs, both trained in electrical systems for critical infrastructure. "Dude, what are you doing? You've been silent for 10 minutes. "Statistical analysis," I said, adjusting a formula. "Of what?" "My marriage falling apart." I made a spreadsheet calculating the economic impact of Rachel's affair, including hotel costs, vehicle depreciation, opportunity cost of her time, and potential emotional damages. Long pause. "That's either genius or insane. Why not both?" I said, adding another data point. "The Navy taught us to gather intelligence before engaging the enemy." "Brother, this isn't a military operation." "Isn't it?" I asked, genuinely curious. "She's deployed tactical deception, secured external resources, and launched an offensive operation against our shared assets. Sounds like warfare to me." Tony laughed, but I could hear concern in his voice. "Just don't do anything stupid, man. Document everything, sure, but don't let this consume you." Too late for that advice. The documentation had become oddly therapeutic. Every data point was another piece of clarity in a situation designed to make me feel crazy. Rachel would come home smelling like expensive cologne, claiming she'd been test driving cars. But my spreadsheet told a different story. The beauty of systematic documentation is that patterns emerge. Rachel's affair wasn't passionate or spontaneous. It was scheduled, predictable, almost corporate in its efficiency. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, every other Saturday morning, occasional Friday evening, client events. She was cheating on a calendar. 3 weeks after Rachel's casual divorce announcement, things got even more surreal. She scheduled a formal discussion in our dining room. When I walked in Saturday morning at 10:20 a.m., I stopped dead. She'd transformed our dining room into a corporate boardroom, legal pads positioned at each seat, bottles of fancy French water that cost $4 each, matching pens arranged with military precision. Angled toward my seat was a laptop with a PowerPoint presentation queued up and ready to go. A PowerPoint presentation for our divorce. The title slide read, "Moving Forward, a Proposal for Mutual Growth and Separation," in elegant font with subtle gradient effects. Below that, presented by Rachel Collins, in smaller text, followed by today's date. There was even a plate of expensive croissants from that overpriced bakery downtown, because apparently divorce discussions required continental breakfast service. "Please sit," she said, like a restaurant hostess guiding me to my table. She was wearing her best business suit, the navy blue one she saved for important client meetings. Her hair was styled, makeup perfect, jewelry chosen to project competence and success. The woman had actually dressed up to deliver a corporate presentation about ending our marriage. She dimmed the lights slightly for optimal viewing and clicked to the first content slide. Slide 1 showed her emotional needs with an actual Venn diagram that looked like it came from a business school textbook. 3 circles labeled intellectual stimulation, emotional connection, and shared ambition. A tiny gray overlap in the center labeled current marriage status. The rest was empty space, representing all the fulfillment I'd apparently failed to provide. As you can see, Rachel began with a laser pointer, an actual red laser pointer. Our marriage has failed to meet my core requirements for personal and professional growth. I've spent considerable time in therapy, understanding my needs and identifying patterns. "You're in therapy?" I interrupted, genuinely surprised. This was news to me. "Yes, Wade, I'm in therapy. I've been working on myself with Dr. Martinez for 6 months now. She's helped me recognize I've been settling for a relationship that doesn't challenge me intellectually or support my professional advancement." 6 months. The same time frame as her affair. Apparently, therapy had taught her that cheating was self-actualization. I nodded and sipped my coffee. Got it. So the affair was actually my fault for not being challenging enough. Her laser pointer wavered slightly. "We're moving past blame, Wade. This is about understanding incompatibilities and addressing them maturely." Slide 2 featured a detailed comparison chart. On the left, my apparent priorities: stable employment, paid-off vehicles, home maintenance, predictable routines, conservative financial choices, local social connections. On the right, Rachel's aspirations: professional excellence, strategic networking, luxury lifestyle alignment, dynamic experiences, high-growth investments, expanded social horizons. "You see the fundamental disconnect," she said, circling her list with the pointer like a professor highlighting key concepts. "You're content with mediocrity. You've never wanted more than average, and I respect that choice, but I can't continue living that way." This woman who didn't know I owned a multi-million-dollar electrical contracting firm was lecturing me about settling for mediocrity, while literally sleeping with her boss in hotels charged to our joint credit card. "Interesting analysis," I said neutrally. "Please continue." Slide 3 was my personal favorite. Proposed asset redistribution showed a pie chart with her slice noticeably larger, labeled Rachel's portion, 65% in confident blue. My wedge was a sad orange slice marked Wade's portion, 35%. "Now, I know Texas is technically a 50-50 community property state," she explained, with the confidence of someone who'd obviously researched this extensively. "But given that I've been the primary driver of our social connections, have superior earning potential going forward, and will need resources to reestablish myself independently, I believe 65-35 better reflects our respective contributions and needs." The sub-slides broke down the details with spreadsheet precision. House equity: 65% to Rachel based on her social investment in the property. Joint savings: 65% to Rachel for opportunity cost of supporting my career. My 401k, she wanted half, naturally. Vehicle distribution: she keeps the Audi, I keep the truck because it suits my lifestyle better. Plus, I'd pay all filing fees, legal costs, and provide 6 months of transition support. She clicked to a timeline slide showing a clean 90-day separation process with milestone markers and deliverables. Then came a slide about co-parenting our non-existent children. Apparently, she'd used a divorce template without customizing it. "I think you'll find this arrangement more than generous," she concluded, clicking to a final slide that just said, "Questions?" over a stock photo of 2 people shaking hands against a sunset. The whole presentation had taken 14 minutes. She'd timed it. I sat back and tapped the fancy pen against the legal pad. The silence stretched out like taffy, and I could see her confidence wavering slightly. She'd clearly prepared for questions, objections, negotiation. "That was incredibly thorough," I said finally. "Really impressive work. You've obviously put a lot of thought into this." She brightened immediately like a student receiving praise from a teacher. "I wanted us to approach this professionally. No drama, no emotional manipulation, just 2 adults making rational decisions based on data and realistic projections." Absolutely. I pulled the legal pad toward me and started writing. So, just to confirm, you want 65% of the house, 65% of savings, half my 401k, you keep your car, I keep mine, and I pay all associated costs? Correct, she said, sitting down with the satisfied expression of someone who thinks they just delivered the presentation of their career. Plus, covering legal fees and transition support is reasonable, given this represents mutual dissolution rather than contested litigation. So I pay for the privilege of getting divorced after you've been cheating. I said it without emotion, just stating facts like reading a weather report. Wade, we've moved past blame and recrimination. This is about moving forward constructively and building separate lives that better serve our individual needs and goals. I finished writing, signed with a flourish, and slid the paper across to her. You know what? You're absolutely right. Growth requires difficult choices. Sometimes you have to let go of things that aren't serving you anymore. I stood up, grabbed a croissant for the road, and headed toward the kitchen. Wait, Rachel called after me, staring at the paper like it might contain invisible ink. That's it? You're agreeing just like that? I turned back and smiled with genuine warmth. Of course. You clearly know what you want. You've done the research, created a comprehensive proposal, and presented it professionally. Who am I to stand in the way of your self-actualization and personal growth? The confusion on her face was beautiful. She'd prepared for negotiation, maybe emotional appeals, possibly a fight. She hadn't prepared for immediate capitulation. What Rachel didn't understand was that the paper I'd signed was meaningless theater. The real legal documents were already filed with the court by Jennifer Walsh, showing that every asset Rachel thought she was dividing didn't belong to us at all. Behind the scenes, the actual legal machinery was already in motion. Jennifer had been busy filing corporate ownership documents, submitting the response to Rachel's divorce petition, and outlining in precise legal detail why every asset Rachel coveted actually belonged to Collins Electric Solutions, LLC. She attached 8 years of documentation, tax returns, corporate filings, government contracts, Department of Defense security clearances, and enough evidence to make any judge understand this wasn't last-minute asset hiding. This was legitimate business structure, established years before. I'd even met Rachel, and Stephen Carter, for all his expensive suits and aggressive reputation, still hadn't connected the dots. He was reviewing documentation, trying to find loopholes, assuming this was a normal divorce case involving a blue-collar electrician. He had no idea the simple tradesman he planned to steamroll actually owned the contracting firm his client's company paid 6 figures annually. A week later, Rachel insisted I attend Auto Plaza Group's annual charity gala at the Petroleum Club. $300 a plate, white tablecloths, centerpieces that cost more than my monthly truck payment, lighting designed to make everyone look either sophisticated or slightly jaundiced. Rachel looked genuinely beautiful in her designer dress, the black one she'd bought for client events, that I now realized meant affair dates. The irony made the whole situation feel like Greek tragedy performed as dark comedy. We arrived fashionably late, and she was immediately swept into air kisses and hollow compliments from her dealership colleagues. These people treated her like she was important, successful, going places. They had no idea she was about to become unemployed. A woman in a silver dress descended on us like a guided missile. Rachel, you look absolutely stunning, and this must be your husband. Wade, I said, extending my hand with a forgettable smile that projected harmless mediocrity. Wonderful to meet you. Sarah Phillips, VP of Client Relations. What do you do, Wade? Electrical work, I said, maintaining the cover story. Technically true. The same way saying I dabble in finance would be true for the CEO of Goldman Sachs. Pretty boring stuff. Commercial installations and maintenance work. Her eyes glazed over immediately. Perfect. She excused herself within 30 seconds to find someone more interesting to network with. Then I saw him. Heath Morrison, general manager, mid-40s, hair styled with enough product to survive a Category 5 hurricane. Wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. He had that particular confidence that comes from never hearing no and having trust fund backup plans. He spotted Rachel across the room, and his face lit up inappropriately. The man couldn't even maintain professional composure at a public event. He made his way over with the swagger of someone who thought he was winning some kind of game. "Rachel," he said, pronouncing her name with too much warmth for a public setting. "You look absolutely incredible tonight." "Heath," she replied with that special breathiness that definitely wasn't there when she talked to me. "Thank you. Have you met my husband, Wade?" Heath turned toward me, like he'd just noticed a piece of furniture had spoken. He extended his hand with an aggressive grip, designed to establish dominance. "Heath Morrison, great to finally meet you. Rachel talks about you all the time." "Does she?" I said pleasantly, matching his grip with exactly average pressure. Not weak, not challenging, just forgettably normal. "That's sweet of her. She mentions you too. Sounds like you work well together." Something flickered across his face. Guilt? Excitement? Hard to tell with narcissists. "We make an excellent team," he said, exchanging a look with Rachel that lasted about 3 seconds too long for professional appropriateness. "She really drives exceptional results, highest sales numbers in our network." "I'll bet she drives something," I thought but didn't say. Instead, "That's fantastic. She definitely puts in the hours. The dedication is really impressive." "Absolutely. That's what it takes to succeed in this industry," Heath agreed, puffing up with the pride of someone taking credit for other people's work. "Going the extra mile, building those crucial client relationships." "Oh, I completely understand," I said, raising my wineglass with a smile. "To excellent service contracts and long-term business partnerships." I said it looking directly at Heath, watching for irony to penetrate his self-absorption. It didn't. The man was too busy being impressed with himself to catch subtext. But Rachel caught it. I saw her hand tighten around her champagne flute, saw her eyes widen slightly, saw her smile freeze like a computer screen buffering. "Especially partnerships with comprehensive maintenance agreements," I added cheerfully, because apparently I couldn't resist pushing the envelope. Heath laughed, completely missing the undertone. "Absolutely right. Maintenance contracts are the backbone of profitable operation. We had to restructure half our vendor relationships last year to improve efficiency." "Sounds complicated," I said with genuine interest. What I didn't mention was that I'd personally overseen those restructured contracts, reviewed the compliance documentation, and signed off on the vendor performance metrics. Collins Electric Solutions had been part of that efficiency improvement initiative. The evening dragged on with mandatory networking and speeches from executives thanking everyone for their charitable contributions. Heath gave a presentation about driving excellence through innovative partnerships, which sounded like either meaningless corporate jargon or elaborate code depending on your level of cynicism. I applauded at appropriate moments, laughed at jokes that weren't particularly funny, and played the role of supportive but forgettable husband with dedicated method acting, all while knowing this performance had a definite expiration date. During dinner, Heath dominated conversation at our table, telling stories about client meetings with the enthusiasm of someone who thought his anecdotes were fascinating. Every few minutes, his eyes would drift to Rachel, and she'd respond with that special smile she used to reserve for me back when we were dating. Richard Chen, the CFO sitting beside me, seemed genuinely nice compared to the other executives. "Rachel mentioned you work in electrical. What company?" "I do contract work for Sterling Corporation," I said, using my carefully prepared cover story that was technically accurate. "Government facilities, some commercial projects." "No kidding!" Richard perked up with genuine interest. "Sterling owns our parent company. Small world, isn't it?" "Incredibly small," I agreed, taking a bite of overpriced chicken that somehow managed to taste like expensive disappointment. As the evening wound down, I felt satisfied with my performance. I'd been forgettable, harmless, exactly what everyone expected from an electrician married above his station. Tomorrow would bring very different expectations. Then came Thursday morning, 9:23 a.m. Exactly. I was making coffee and Rachel was upstairs getting ready for work. Her phone rang on the kitchen counter, the screen lighting up with a name that made my chest flutter with anticipation. "Mr. Carter?" I felt like I was watching the season finale of my own life. "Hang on, I'll get it," Rachel called, rushing downstairs in her bathrobe. She grabbed the phone with her professional smile, the one she used for important clients. "Mr. Carter, good morning. How can I help you today?" Then her voice changed completely. "I'm sorry. What did you just say?" The professional smile evaporated like it had never existed. I risked a glance and watched her freeze completely. Phone pressed against her ear, other hand gripping the kitchen counter like she was trying not to fall down. What do you mean he owns everything through an LLC? Her voice went up a full octave, approaching that pitch only dogs and divorce lawyers can hear. He's just an electrician. He works residential service calls. He drives a work truck. The truck. She kept coming back to the truck like it was Exhibit A in a criminal trial, as if vehicle choice was legally binding evidence of net worth. Carter's voice was muffled through the phone, but I could hear panic. That special kind of lawyer, panic that happens when they realize they've catastrophically underestimated their opponent and are about to become the defendant in a malpractice lawsuit. But I signed documents. Rachel's voice started cracking like ice under pressure. I signed lease agreements. When did I sign those? What documents are you talking about? She was remembering. Finally remembering signing the lease agreement when we first moved into the house. The one where Collins Electric Solutions, LLC's name, was printed right there at the top in bold 14-point font. The one she'd barely glanced at because signing papers was boring, and she trusted her husband to handle the details. He's the registered owner of our electrical contractor? Rachel's voice got louder, approaching full hysteria. Auto Plaza Group pays his company how much annually? Every asset I listed in my petition belongs to that business entity? Her face was cycling through colors like a malfunctioning traffic light, white to red to purple and back again. That can't be possible. I would have known. I lived with him for 7 years. People don't just secretly own companies. But they do, Rachel. They absolutely do when they're smarter than you gave them credit for and better at keeping their mouths shut. She turned toward me, eyes wide with dawning horror. Our gazes met across the kitchen. I was caught mid-pour, coffee streaming into my mug, totally definitely not listening to her conversation. She stared at me like I'd just revealed I was secretly an alien spy. Her mouth opened and closed several times, but no sound came out except the small gasping noises. "I'll call you back," she whispered into the phone, hanging up without waiting for Carter's response. The silence stretched between us like a high-voltage wire. I took a careful sip of coffee. Perfect temperature. "What the hell is Collins Electric Solutions?" she finally managed, voice shaking like she was hypothermic. "My company," I said simply, as if she'd asked me what day it was. "Electrical contracting firm, government facilities, oil refineries, data centers. Been running it for 8 years now. Pretty successful operation, actually." "Your company?" she repeated slowly, like she was trying to translate a foreign language. "You have a company? A real company?" "Started it before we met. Been doing really well. It's grown significantly over the years, especially with the government contracts and DoD clearance work. And the house? Company property. We rent from the LLC. You signed the lease when we moved in. It's properly filed with the county clerk's office. The cars? Company vehicles, tax deductible, very efficient from an accounting perspective. The investment accounts, business assets, properly documented, filed annually, reported to the IRS every year for 8 consecutive years. Jennifer, that's my corporate attorney, you haven't met her. She's extremely thorough about compliance issues." Rachel's face was now cycling through the entire visible spectrum. She looked like someone had just explained that gravity was optional, and also she owed back taxes to Jupiter. "You lied to me," she said, voice somewhere between whisper and scream. "I never lied," I corrected gently, because accuracy matters in these situations. "I just didn't mention it. You never asked about my business interests. You assumed I was just Wade the electrician, and I allowed you to maintain that assumption. There's a significant difference between deception and simply not volunteering information." "That's manipulative?" "Is it?" I asked with genuine curiosity. "More or less manipulative than sleeping with your boss for 6 months, then hiring an aggressive attorney to divorce me while attempting to claim 65% of assets you assume belong to our marriage?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Even Rachel could see how that particular math worked out. "Heath," she said suddenly, face going completely pale. "Oh my God, Heath signs your invoices, doesn't he?" "Well, not directly," I said, because precision matters. They go through several approval levels and compliance reviews. But yes, technically speaking, reports I generate for Auto Plaza Group eventually cross his desk for final authorization. He's general manager, so he signs off on major vendor relationships and service contracts. Quite the remarkable coincidence when you think about it. "Coincidence?" she echoed, then made a sound that might have been laughter, if laughter could carry existential despair. You planned this. You planned all of this. I planned to protect my assets through proper corporate structure, which any competent financial advisor would recommend. The timing of everything else, the affair, the divorce, the PowerPoint presentation with pie charts, that was entirely your initiative. You made those choices. You hired Stephen Carter. You created that ridiculous asset redistribution proposal. I just maintained good paperwork and followed standard business practices. She sank into a kitchen chair, like her skeletal system had suddenly given up. Carter said, "I don't get anything. Nothing. The house, the cars, the savings accounts. None of it counts as community property because it all belongs to your company." Technically correct, I confirmed, with the satisfaction of someone whose homework had finally been graded. The best kind of correct. "But I signed the lease," she said to herself, staring at nothing. Why didn't I read what I was signing? Why didn't I pay attention? She looked up at me with tears forming, and for just a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. How could you do this to me, Wade? And that's when I felt it. Not sympathy. I'd exhausted that emotion over 6 months of being systematically betrayed and gaslighted, but maybe a kind of tired disappointment that our marriage had come to this moment. How could I do this? I repeated, setting my empty mug in the sink with deliberate care. Rachel, I didn't do anything to you. I built a successful business. I protected my assets through legitimate legal structures. I followed all applicable laws and regulations. You're the one who decided our marriage wasn't worth honoring. You're the one who spent 6 months cheating with your boss. You're the one who hired an expensive lawyer to dissolve our marriage while attempting to claim the majority of assets you assumed I owned. You're the one who made PowerPoint presentations about my supposed lack of ambition and vision. I walked toward the hallway, then paused. She was still sitting there, looking like someone had just explained that everything she thought she knew about physics was incorrect. "For what it's worth," I said, "I genuinely loved you when we started. I thought we were building something meaningful together. But you looked at me and saw a placeholder, someone boring and safe you could eventually upgrade from when someone more exciting came along. So, yes, I kept my business completely separate and my assets properly protected, not because I planned for this specific outcome, but because I'm not an idiot." I left her sitting in the kitchen, surrounded by the smoking ruins of her carefully constructed plan, and went to my workshop to review some contract specifications. Because even when your marriage is imploding spectacularly, government electrical systems still need maintenance schedules. Plus, Heath's monthly vendor authorization had just come through my email, requiring my digital signature for approval. The irony was still absolutely delicious. Within 2 weeks, the affair went nuclear across the entire Auto Plaza network. Heath's wife found out. And Mrs. Morrison wasn't just any scorned spouse. She was Patricia Morrison, whose family owned a controlling interest in Auto Plaza Group and sat on the board of directors. The same board that took an extremely dim view of general managers conducting affairs with subordinate employees, especially when such relationships created massive liability exposure for sexual harassment lawsuits. Heath got fired immediately, not laid off, not pursuing other opportunities, but terminated for cause, escorted out by corporate security with his personal belongings in a cardboard box, company car privileges revoked, professional reputation destroyed. Rachel got fired the same day for ethics violations and company policy breaches. They didn't even allow her to finish the week or collect her personal items. Security supervised her exit. I found out through Tony, who heard about it through the oil industry network that apparently functioned like the world's most efficient gossip distribution system. "Dude," he texted, "Heath and your wife just got terminated. It's trending on LinkedIn. People are making popcorn emoji comment threads." I sat back in my workshop chair and smiled at the ceiling. I hadn't caused any of this. I hadn't called Patricia Morrison or reported anything to HR. I had simply existed, maintained proper documentation, and allowed natural consequences to unfold according to their own logic. 6 months later, I was sitting in a downtown steakhouse with Jennifer Walsh, drinking excellent bourbon and reflecting on the whole saga like it was a case study from business school. "I still cannot believe she created a PowerPoint presentation," Jennifer said, shaking her head with professional amazement. "With pie charts and a laser pointer and continental breakfast service. Who approaches divorce like a corporate merger?" Someone who thought she was the smartest person in the room, I replied. Turns out the room contained better documentation. Rachel had moved back in with Beverly, which felt like perfect poetic justice. Two divorced women living together, complaining about men while surviving on settlement payments and alimony checks. Heath had relocated to Phoenix to start fresh, which was corporate speak for running away from professional humiliation and hoping potential employers didn't perform thorough Google searches. Me. I had purchased a beautiful ranch-style house in Frisco, 4 acres of Texas land, workshop space larger than most people's entire homes, nothing but open sky and possibility stretching to the horizon. On paper, of course, it was owned by Collins Electric Solutions, LLC, because I had definitely learned my lesson about mixing business assets with personal relationships. So, what's next for you? Jennifer asked. Dating, traveling, maybe becoming a full-time corporate revenge consultant? I laughed and raised my bourbon glass. Honestly, just focusing on expanding the business, spending time with genuine friends, and maybe developing a hobby that doesn't involve documenting marital infidelity in color-coded spreadsheets. My phone buzzed with an email notification from Rachel. Subject line: "We should talk, important." The message was 4 paragraphs, attempting to explain how she'd made terrible mistakes, been confused about her priorities, thought maybe we could work things out somehow, how she finally understood that I was much more than she'd given me credit for. I showed Jennifer my phone screen. "Are you going to respond to that?" I deleted the email, blocked the sender, and created an automatic filter routing all future communications from Rachel Collins directly to the trash folder. "Nope," I said, putting my phone away. "I'm perfectly fine exactly where I am." Jennifer raised her bourbon glass with a satisfied smile. "To properly documented legal structures." I clinked my glass against hers. "And tax-deductible poetic justice." Here's the thing about revenge that most people don't understand. Everyone says it's best served cold, but honestly, it's much more satisfying when it's served completely legal, thoroughly documented, and with a generous side of irony. The woman left me because I was too predictable and drove a work truck instead of chasing. Exciting opportunities. Turns out that boring, methodical people who read contracts carefully and file proper paperwork are exactly the type you don't want to underestimate or betray. TLDR. Wife cheated with her boss for 6 months, hired expensive shark lawyer, made corporate PowerPoint presentation, proposing to divide our assets 65-35 in her favor. She had no idea I owned a multi-million-dollar electrical contracting company that her boss's dealership group paid $220K annually for maintenance services. Every asset she planned to claim actually belonged to my LLC, established years before our marriage. Both she and her boss got fired when the affair became public knowledge. She received nothing in the divorce and moved back in with her mother. I kept everything, bought a ranch house, and expanded my business. Sometimes the boring guy wins.